Nothing moves faster than the NFL regular season. We are ready on to week 3. The Chargers will be in LA opening against the Broncos at SoFi. It's going to be a great matchup. I think this is probably the Chargers' toughest test so far this season. You can argue the Chiefs, but statistically, Denver is a much better team right now than the Chiefs are, probably with the exception of the quarterback. So it's going to be a great test for this offense and this defense this weekend at SoFi. So in this episode, we're going to go through my breakdown analysis and outcome of the game on Sunday. I think the Chargers are going to come out victorious. My first video I ever did, I predicted the Chargers would win this game. So I'm going to go through why I think that and my final score predictions. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Follow me on X and TikTok at Electric Edge Pod. You can also listen to the show on Spotify. You can find me at Electric Edge Podcast. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. All right, so the Chargers face off against the Broncos on Sunday. The Broncos are 1-1. They had a really, really bad loss against the Colts last week. And then even in their home opener, they did not play well against Tennessee. If Tennessee's wide receivers could catch a few balls from Cam Ward, I think the Titans could have possibly won that game. So it'll be interesting to see if some of those things are cleaned up on Sunday for the Broncos. But I think from a holistic view, this will be the Chargers' toughest test. I mean, the offensive line of the Broncos coming into the season was ranked number 2 in the league. Their defense is ranked very high. Bo Nix is in year 2. He hasn't got off to a great start, but Denver's run game is really solid. Our old friend J.K. Dobbins is really lighting it up. I think he's averaging about 4.6 yards a carry right now with them. I want to get into the keys to the game as far as how the Chargers can start the season off 3-0 and be 3-0 in the division, which is insanely huge to get off to this hot start. So the Broncos rely heavily on their run game. Bo Nix to start the season, his QBR is 43.5. He's thrown for 382 pass yards and 4 touchdowns. So the game against the Titans, he was 25 for 40 with 176 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 sacks. His QBR was 23.5. Last week against Indy, his numbers were better. He was 22 of 30 for 206, and he had a QBR of 72.2. What helps Bo Nix is, 1, he has a great offensive line, but 2, their run game is cooking because of that offensive line. So key 1 for this week is to keep Bo Nix and the Denver pass game off balance. So the Broncos possess one of the top rushing offenses. They average 134.5 yards per game, which ranks 10th in the NFL. Their passing offense ranks near the bottom. So their run game takes the pressure off Bo Nix and his inconsistencies in the first 2 games of the year. So Denver's averaging 186 yards per game, which is 25th in the league. So the Chargers have to make sure that they are, 1, stopping the run game, which was a problem for them last year. The past 2 weeks, they haven't really had to stop a run game. I mean, Kansas City's having trouble establishing their run game. Their leading rusher the past 2 weeks has been Mahomes. Against the Raiders, they had the 6th overall pick going against them, and I think he rushed for maybe 50 yards. So this is going to be the real test. Can the Chargers' defensive line put enough pressure to stop the run game? So last year, the Chargers' run defense was ranked 14th in the league. They gave up an average of 117.5 yards rushing per game. So this year, right out of the gate, they've had a better run defense. So let's see, actually against a better offensive line and a better set of running backs, because not only do they have J.K. Dobbins, they also drafted R.J. Harvey, who's had some rotation in between the running backs. Let's see how well that they can stop the run. If they can stop the run, you'll eliminate Bo Nix. That run game takes a lot of pressure off of Bo Nix in that offense. That's key 1, to limit the run game, keep the Broncos under 100 yards rushing this week at SoFi, and you'll have a good outcome. My second point is going to go hand in hand with a third point. 1, the Chargers need to continue what they've done the past 2 weeks. Give Herbert enough time to throw the ball. It's been apparent that this offense is going to run through Justin Herbert, and he's going to throw 25, 30 times a game. And it should. He's the best player on the field. However, Denver's defense is pretty good. You know, the hype in the offseason was that, this is the best defense in the NFL. Well, currently, through 2 games, Denver's defense has allowed 184 yards per game passing, which puts them at 9th. However, on the flip side, they're ranked 20th against the run. So points 2 and 3 is, 1, Herbert's going to throw for over 200 yards. That's a given. Secondly, it goes back to the Chargers have to get the run game going. I've said this week 1 and week 2. They've yet to do it. They need a rush for over 100 yards, and it needs to be with the running backs. It can't be Herbert. Herbert's going to use his legs when he needs to, but we need 100 yards from our 2 running backs. You signed Najee in the offseason. You draft Hampton. You need to get them the ball. You need to feed them the ball, keep the clock moving, move them down the field. I think you can exploit this Denver run defense this week. And currently, Denver's defense so far through 2 games, they've had 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and 19 QB hits. I think that's a little bit subjective. Week 1 against the Titans, the Titans' offensive line isn't that good, and Cam Ward was running all over the field. So it's going to be interesting to see how well we can protect Herbert. I mean, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. The offensive line through the past 2 weeks has played very well, definitely exceeded my expectations, but this is a better defensive line they're going to go against this week against Denver. I mean, last week against the Colts, they gave up 316 passing yards to Daniel Jones. They gave up 165 rushing yards to Jonathan Taylor, and the Colts put up 29 points against them. I think some of these numbers are a bit skewed because of week 1 against Tennessee, but you need to go after the run game. You have to establish the run, which I've mentioned many times. We need to get over 100 yards rushing as an offense. I would say primarily with our 2 running backs. And Herbert's he's gonna throw for 25, 30 attempts a game. He can easily throw for 300 yards on Sunday. Those 2 keys, I think that's how the Chargers go 3-0 on Sunday. Once again, which I've talked about last week against the Raiders, the Chargers need to win the turnover battle. Bo Nix is probably going to throw a pick or 2. In his 2 games so far, he's thrown 3 picks and a pick. He's up to 4 picks this year. Create those turnovers, put pressure on him, win the turnover battle, you'll win the game. The Chargers had 3 turnovers Monday night against the Raiders, and they won. Forced turnovers, forced mistakes. Bo Nix is going to make mistakes. Keep that advantage in the turnover game, and you'll have a positive outcome on Sunday. And I think the one thing I'm going to say that the Chargers the past 2 games have done very well. There haven't been the stupid penalties, the personal fouls that give up big chunks of yards. They swing momentum. Don't let it happen. You're at home. Stay disciplined. I think Minter in general has done a really good job with that coming in. That Chargers defense is just so disciplined that I don't recall a lot of the time where it was one of those personal fouls. I don't think they've had one so far this year. I mean, the Raiders got called on a personal foul against Herbert when he was running, and he slid, and it was helmet-to-helmet contact, and it wound up with points on the board for the Chargers. And also with being disciplined, I think the Chargers this week have to do a better job, especially against Denver. So last week against the Raiders, there was a lot of settling for field goals. There's 2 touchdowns, and I believe there's 2 field goals. And the 1 field goal they kicked, they were within 5 yards of the end zone. It's important, especially in division games, to finish with touchdowns. Yes, field goals are part of the game, but when you're in the red zone, you need to be able to score. So I'm hoping this week that if the Chargers can get the run game going, that in those red zone situations, they're not settling for field goals. They're scoring touchdowns and keeping the pressure on Denver for the entire 4 quarters. Being relentless, moving up and down the field. That's how you go 3-0 in a division and really solidify your place in the top of the AFC as well. I mean, there's a ton of hype right now around the Chargers. Like I mentioned in my last episode, Herbert has, I think, the 3rd best odds right now for MVP voting. Also, the Chargers have like a 60% chance to win division. Could you imagine starting 3-0 with 3 division games and being 3-0 in them? That is a tough mountain to climb, even for Kansas City, who sometimes they have slower starts and they figure it out. That's a really tough mountain to climb with a 3-game deficit on you. I think that the Chargers are going to continue what they're doing, what they have done between Kansas City and the Raiders. Herbert's going to throw for 25, 30 attempts a game. They got to get the run game going. The defense is going to be solid. The defense is going to do what the defense does. Bend, don't break, right? Give up the field goals. Don't give up the touchdowns. Contain Bo Nix. Put pressure on him. Stop the run game. And that you're well on your way for a victory on Sunday. Right now, I think the Chargers are favored at home as well. Let's see the money line. Yeah, they're a 3-point favorite at home. I think it's going to be one of those shootout games. I think it's going to be high scoring. But I'm interested to see how the defense plays. I mean, the last time the Broncos played at SoFi was right before Christmas of last year, and it was a rough first half, and we kind of got that momentum swing, and then all engines go in the second half. But here's some key things to know about current spreads and statistics. So the Chargers have covered the spread in their last 6 divisional games. The Chargers are 2-0 against the spread this season. The Broncos are 0-2 against the spread this season. So It's looking like it's going to be another close one. I think the over-under is 46 for this game. Yeah, it's going to be a somewhat 20, 24, 21 type score on Sunday. I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to make it there. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it, unfortunately. I think my first home game of the season is going to be against Washington. You never know. Things change. I still have my tickets, so I'm going to try and make it work if I can, but it's not looking too good. Some other things to talk about that have come out in the past 2 days. Khalil Mack going on the IR. He'll be out for 4 games with a dislocated elbow, which is great news. The images did not look good on Monday of his elbow, but luckily there's no significant damage. So hopefully it's the 4 games and then he's back in the rotation. They have signed Tony Jefferson to the active roster. He played great Monday night. He got a pick. Molden's still hurt, so he's a little bit older, but the dude can still ball. That's why I call him the Unk. Also, the Chargers signed 2 defensive ends today, too. So they signed Clelin Ferrell, who was last with the Commanders. I saw something where it's kind of a full circle moment. So Clelin Ferrell was drafted in order to take Khalil Mack's place with the Raiders. He was drafted in the first round to the Raiders. He bounced around. He went to the 49ers and then ended up with Washington last year. When Mack's healthy and if Clelin Ferrell comes onto the active roster, you'll have 2 Raiders first-round picks on defensive line. But he started 57 career games. He started 10 games last year with Washington. I think he had 3.5 sacks last year. It's not going to be the same production as Mack, but Ortiz is going to fill the holes as needed. And they also signed another defensive end today, Rashad Weaver. So he came from, I think he was on the Texans at one point and Tennessee. He's had 5.5 sacks over 3 years with Tennessee. The Chargers, for some reason, they love to sign Tennessee players. Elijah Molden was on the Titans, Hassan Haskins, now Rashad Weaver. So there must be a connection somewhere. I think Harbaugh likes those tough guys that played under Vrabel. Yeah, a little bit of depth now with Khalil out, but it's good to see that he'll be back in 4 games because he's a big part of that defensive line. Some other news, just the injury report came out today as well. Raheem still was on it Wednesday. He practiced full today. Ladd McConkey didn't practice yesterday. He was having a bicep injury, but he was at practice today as full participant. Diane Henley is still battling the flu, so he was limited. Cam Hart, hip injury, he's been limited both days as well. Justin Herbert was on it. He didn't practice Wednesday. He practiced today. Will Dissly has not practiced the past 2 days, so that's something to keep an eye out on if he will play on Sunday. And Elijah Molden is still not practicing with that hamstring injury, but Tony Jefferson is taking his place. But I'm looking forward to another divisional matchup Sunday. It's pretty interesting to me how the Chargers have played 3 divisional games in the row to start off the season. But that helps them be in a position to win the AFC West, which it's been a long time since the Chargers won the AFC West. I think it's 16 years at this point. Let's see. Yep, 2009 was the last time the Chargers won the AFC West. I think they have the team to do it. I think Kansas City is going to struggle. I think Kansas City may lose to the Giants on Sunday. Don't count out the Giants. They got to fly to the East Coast. It's a Sunday night game. The Giants' offense, for the most part, last week looked pretty good. Their defense is iffy, but I wouldn't count out the Giants from winning their home opener. It'll be interesting to see if Kansas City can get their first win or they're going to start the season 0-3, which would probably be catastrophic for them. But they are the Chiefs, have their voodoo, black magic, whatever they have, that somehow gets them to win 1-score games. But we'll see. So my final prediction for Sunday, before the season started, my first video, I did my season outlook and my predictions. Week 3, I had the Chargers winning 27-24 at home, starting the season 3-0. Real quick, as far as my predictions so far, I had them winning week 1 against Kansas City 24-21. Like I said, I was off by 3 points on that game. I had them winning in Vegas. I had them winning 31-20. A little bit too enthusiastic on that score. But I think the final score this week is going to be 3 points. But I hope the Chargers defense proves me wrong and they give up 3 field goals all game like last week. It will be pretty amazing to start the season 3-0 and be off to a great start, great lead in the AFC West, and finally getting back to the days when I became a Chargers fan where the Chargers were winning the division and they had the best record in the AFC. I would love for the Chargers to get back to that place. And I think it's going to happen with this coaching staff and this team. I'm going to be overly optimistic because I'm a Chargers fan, but a lot of announcers, analysts are in the same boat I am. They're really high on the Chargers right now, but they got to prove it week to week. This isn't the Chiefs. This isn't a track record of doing it. They have to prove week to week. They're one of the top teams in the AFC. Can do it this week again, beating Denver. So with that being said, that's my predictions for Sunday's game against the Broncos. Home opener, gonna be a good one. Division games are always awesome to go to and be a part of. So if you can go to the game, let me know in the comments. Give me your predictions and analysis on what's going to happen Sunday against the Broncos. If you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know below in the comments. Always love to read comments from Chargers fans. If you're a Broncos fan, I don't want to hear it, but all engagement is appreciated. So if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Follow me on X and TikTok at Electric Edge Pod. You can listen to the show on Spotify. So with that being said, as always, go Chargers and bolt up.